The Vice President mentioned the other day there would be accommodations, they were willing to make accommodations with the Iranian deal. Could you kind of expand on those?
We're negotiating, and we'll see. But either we're going to get it one way or the other. They're not going to have a nuclear weapon. This is the nuclearization of a country that some people would say is somewhat crazy, and we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all it is.
They keep their highly enriched uranium.
No, we get the highly enriched. We will get it. We don't need it. We don't want it. We'll probably destroy it after we get it, but we're not going to let them have it.
President Trump at the White House yesterday saying that a deal will be reached no matter what, as Iran reviews the president's latest proposal. This is new reports surface of an intense phone call between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who remains highly skeptical of a new deal and wants to further weaken the regime. I want to bring in Heritage Foundation National Security Vice President Victoria Coates. Victoria, the Pentagon slamming this new CNN report that Iran is rebuilding its military base faster than expected. I want to get your reaction to that, and also just your thoughts in general. Do you think or expect that the president and the administration are going to go back in to Iran and take, again, military action and the ceasefire to further weaken the regime and maybe free the strait?
Well, good morning, Carol. Great to be with you. No, I think that I am highly skeptical of the CNN reporting, as I am of the reporting about this phone call between the president and Prime Minister Netanyahu. I mean, these are all just kind of sensationalist reports of people who weren't on the call, who aren't on the ground in Iran. And the fact remains that Operation Epic Fury has been enormously successful against the Iranians. I mean, they are totally on their back foot. They have no resources to rebuild these things. And the president has retained every option. If he does want to go back in, if he wants to do further damage to their infrastructure in particular that will completely decimate their economy, he has that option. He wants a diplomatic resolution. He has that on the table. But if that doesn't work out, if the Iranians don't seize the opportunity to do the right thing, he has all of his options.
Well, I mean, I think that there's talk, and I'm crediting Hugh Hewitt on this. He's got a piece on FoxNews.com, and he basically says that the U.S. needs to create a demilitarized zone along the Hormuz Strait. But a piece of that puzzle is, to create this no fire, no movement zone would be that we would need to go in and recommence combat operations against the IRGC.
Well, I mean, we could do something like that. That kind of option has always been there. But the fact is also that the reverse blockade that the president put in place about a month ago, that's what's really crippling Iran. I mean, yes, the oil that's in the Gulf isn't getting out. It would be great if we could get that going. It would be good for everybody's economy. But at the same time, what is happening is just this complete stoppage of Iranian exports. And so that's not going to places like China, first and foremost. And I would think Chairman Xi would be fairly unhappy about that because he's already paid for a lot of those molecules that are blocked up there. And so he may be putting more pressure on Iran to get to a resolution.
Okay, well, on the heels of the Beijing summit, you would hope so. I want to talk about Cuba. Ex-Cuban President Raul Castro was indicted by the DOJ. The charges include murder and conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals. It's connected to his alleged role in the 1996 downing of 2 planes. 4 men were killed, including 3 Americans at that time. But things have really increased with tensions with the Cuban government. The USS Nimitz aircraft carrier arrived in the Caribbean Wednesday. This is right on the doorstep of Cuba. Here's the president. Watch.
Cuba, look, it's a failed country. Everybody knows it. They don't have electricity. They don't have money. They don't have really anything. They don't have food. And we're going to help them along, and we're going to help them because number one, I want to help them. I don't want to on a humanitarian basis, but we have the Cuban-American population, much of it living in Miami and Florida. That's a great group of people, amazing group of people, industrious, they're great Americans. They've wanted this to happen. They want to go back to their country. They want to help their country.
Victoria, your thoughts? Now, this is a huge development, and bear in mind what happened in Cuba. The reason Raul Castro was indicted recently is because we had a humanitarian group, the Brothers to the Rescue. And what they used to do was, when we had a lot of like little rafts and boats coming from Cuba, people so desperate to get off the island, they would risk their lives. They would send up small private planes to try to locate those people and save them. That's why they were called Brothers to the Rescue. And they were infiltrated by Cuban intelligence that then used that information and on the direct orders, as Secretary Rubio said yesterday, of Raul Castro, to shoot down those planes so they couldn't rescue those poor people in those rafts. I mean, that's the kind of regime that we're talking about here. That's how they spend their resources, not trying to help the Cuban people. So the president is 100% correct. We want the Cuban people to thrive. They thrive everywhere except for Cuba, which is quite ironic. And, you know, this is a way that we can start to bring justice to this regime that has tormented them for so long. And everybody knows what happened to Nicolas Maduro, who was under indictment by the first Trump administration. And so this same thing could happen to Raul Castro.
All right, but before you go, I do want to ask you about the issue of Taiwan, because President Trump has agreed to speak with Taiwan's president. They're weighing a $14 billion weapons sale to the island. Watch this.
Do you have any plans to call President Lai of Taiwan before you make a decision on the weapons package?
Well, I'll speak to him. I speak to everybody. We have that situation very well in hand. We had a great meeting with President Xi. It was amazing, actually. It was amazing. Many of you were there. We'll work on that, the Taiwan problem.
Victoria, your reaction?
Right. I mean, the president was very clear when he was in Beijing. Nothing has changed with Taiwan. The so-called status quo, which is that Taiwan and China are separate, is going to hold. That we are not going to do anything unilaterally to upset that. That is what Taiwan wants. We don't want a provocation with China. I mean, God forbid they take military action against Taiwan. We want to prevent that. At the same time, Chairman Xi obviously doesn't get a veto over who President Trump calls. It would be a very big deal for him to have a phone call with the president of Taiwan. I would support that. I think he should talk to President Lai and find out, you know, sort of where their heads are on this, and if a decision is made for the arms sale to go through. Again, President Xi doesn't get a veto over that. That's a decision for the President of the United States.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to bring in my colleague Todd Pyro, who's got a question for you, Victoria.
Victoria, good to see you as always. To be clear, you're saying that this is just normal posturing that happens in the course of diplomacy and international relations. This is not something unique in light of last week's major summit between Xi and Trump.
Good morning, Todd. No, I mean, the President and the Secretary Rubio, have again been very clear that they are supporting the status quo across the strait between Taiwan and China, that they don't want any unilateral decision made by China to change that arrangement. And we want to keep Taiwan free. We want to keep Taiwan prosperous. They are an incredible partner to the United States, particularly in high-tech manufacturing. And so I think that is in everybody's best interest to lower the temperature here, make sure we don't sort of drift into some kind of a conflict, because that would be quite disastrous. If we think the Iran war has been bad for the global economy, a conflict between the United States and China over Taiwan, for example, would be really, really horrible. So we want to avoid that, but at the same time, we don't give China a veto over what we do with Taiwan.
Yeah. Victoria Coates, it's always great to have you on the program. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, everybody.